October 7th, that means that we are celebrating the World Cotton Day. Now, it is a chance for us to show how cotton has shaped the fashion industry and its enduring impact in the world.
There are generally two types of cotton that we know of, organic and conventional. The organic type is typically more eco-friendly than the conventional one, since it's generally not exposed to pesticides.
Yes, unfortunately, the current production methods of conventional cotton are not environmentally sustainable. So the question now is, how can fashion activists maintain conventional cotton production without damaging the planet?
Now, the fashion industry has never been viewed as being eco-friendly, but in the last 2 years, sustainable fashion products have started to emerge. Now, we're going to have a little discussion now in regards to this, especially because it's World Cotton Day.
Indeed. So to talk more about sustainability in the fashion industry, which is very important, we are now connected with the Coordinator of Fahion Revolution Malaysia, Melissa Tan. Good morning, Malaysia. Thank you so much for joining us.
Morning, Melissa.
Hi everyone, good morning.
Hi. Melissa, so before we go into the fashion revolution movement itself, could you please tell us what is sustainable fashion? What are the requirements that a fashion item is considered sustainable?
So there are many aspects to producing fashion. I think the first thing that usually people look at is the material that it's made from. But there are so many elements that we need to consider, like the welfare of workers along the entire supply chain, from the people that are growing the cotton to processing it, ginning it, weaving it, all the way to the end. I think when we think of sustainable fashion, we have to think of it as a whole, as ethical fashion. Does this not harm humans and the environment?
So how would consumers know whether the fashion item that they want to purchase or they like is sustainable or not? Because sometimes whenever I go to a fashion store and then they put that label, right? It's like ethically sourced or ethically produced. And sometimes I feel like, oh, that's great, then I'm buying something that is ethical.
But you don't know the details.
But then sometimes I also feel, is this only a label for marketing, or do they really do it? So how do we as consumers trace whether this product is really ethical or ethically sourced or ethically produced?
That's a great question, because there's a lot of greenwashing that is happening in the industry right now. Obviously, people are getting more aware of the impact of fashion and they're demanding for better. And I think that's the positive thing about the whole industry right now, that people are waking up to the impact of fashion and they want all of this to stop. They want the industry to get better. When we look at the word sustainable fashion, there is actually no true sustainable fashion. But brands and companies are very, very quick to use that term. They were very happy to tell you that it's sustainable, even though, if there are 100 elements, they only address one. Because they know they want to appeal to your values. They want you to buy. They want you to feel good about buying. And since more people are aware, they want those people to feel good about buying as well. But it doesn't take away the real impact of it. They're not telling you the full picture. So transparency is very important. They have to disclose more information so that we as consumers can also make a decision. But on our end, it's also our responsibility to question, do I really need these items? Right now, we're producing enough clothing in the world every year for every person to have 13 new pieces. Can you imagine replacing your entire wardrobe, every single person in the world, every year? That's the amount of fashion that we're creating, and they need you to buy it. So they will tell you what you want to hear to make that happen.
You're talking about fast fashion, right? This is like fast fashion.
Like affordable,
yeah.
economical.
Well, it's like super cheap, but
Right.
It's like a month later it tears.
If it wears up, but they said, oh, well, no big deal because I didn't spend that much on it anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe they should change the term to more sustainable as opposed to just sustainable, because you don't know what exactly that means. So tell us a little bit about fashion. Tell us about Fahion Revolution and on a global scale, and what your programs are currently in Malaysia.
So Fashion Revolution campaigns for a clean, safe, fair, transparent, and accountable fashion industry. And we do that through research, education, collaboration, mobilization, and advocating for policy change. We're a global movement, and we have country offices and voluntary teams in 90 different countries. So here we are in Malaysia. The main event that we host every year is Fashion Revolution Week, and this is in conjunction with the Rana Plaza disaster that happened on 24th April. As most of you would have heard, it was a factory collapse in Bangladesh that killed more than 1,000 people and injured and hundreds more. So every year we remember the lives lost, and we demand that no one should die for fashion, and we campaign for systemic change in the fashion industry. So while it is important for us to hold brands accountable, we also have to realize that it's not just about naming and shaming, it's about changing our entire culture around fashion.
Yes. How do you change the culture? What is actually the best culture for our environment in the fashion industry?
We definitely have to slow things down.
Thank
right now,
you.
We're stuck in we're stuck in this endless loop of overconsumption and overproduction, and it's undeniably harmful to the environment and people that are involved in making clothes. Right now we're producing around 92 million tons of waste every single year just from fashion. We contribute. Just the fashion industry alone, stats have shown between 8% to 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And with the climate crisis hanging over our heads, this is not where we want to be contributing, because fashion is often sold to us as a necessity, but we have gone so far beyond that. If you think about it, if tomorrow all the fashion shops close, and I think we learned that lesson during the pandemic, how much fashion do we actually need?
True.
When we were all staying at home and we were just, doing things that were essential, we started questioning, why do I have all these clothing? Why do I keep buying more? And I think that's the lesson that we have to remember going out of the pandemic as well.
Absolutely. And actually there's this movement as well, probably in the sort of like fashion industry. We have several applications or several services where you can borrow instead of buying. So sometimes people, right? That's what I actually do as well, because, for my other needs. I'm actually pretty much a minimalist, and that's why I'd rather borrow than buy. So, Melissa, how can we begin? How can we start to adopt sustainable fashion in our daily lives? What sort of mindset do we need to change from the previous mindset to the current, more environmentally mindset when it comes to fashion?
Great question. So I guess the first point is to realize how you actually consume fashion, because our relationship with fashion is actually incredibly toxic. We're always looking at social media, constantly shopping for things that we don't really need. It's taking up a lot of time and money, and we have to realize that the impact doesn't just stay with us, it is to all the other people along the supply chain. Think about the number of workers that have been involved in touching that piece of garment to ship it all over the world, to get it processed, to get it to you. The amount of carbon emissions that are involved, the amount of people that have been exposed to toxic chemicals, toxic pesticides, toxic insecticides, just to get this to you, for you to use 2 times and then throw away. So it's incredibly harmful. So the first thing that we can do is reflect on ourselves, realize that we have more than enough, and use all these methods, such as the one that you mentioned, Mirza, shopping our own wardrobe, shopping our friends' wardrobe. So, using things that are already in existence, going secondhand, thrifting, borrowing, renting, and examining the way that we consume so that we can enjoy fashion more. Because if the volume doesn't dictate how much we enjoy them, 1,000 pieces of clothing is not going to make you happier than your 10 favorite pieces.
Absolutely.
So, explore things like capsule wardrobes and things like that.
Absolutely. And also, sorry, Paul, I'm sort of like dominating the talk show a little bit. I'm just so curious about this, because changing our mindset is definitely important, and I see a lot in Generation Z. Generation Z tends to actually borrow or go to thrift store, going back to vintage and everything, right? I know, which is a good thing actually. But also at the same time, there's this other power, Melissa, that you mentioned. Social media actually helps create this toxic relationship between consumers and fashion. Now, there is the power of social media, and also there's the power of fast fashion industries. They would just keep campaigning and churning out all these new models. Like we no longer have 4 seasons, but we have like how many? Like 70 seasons now with fast fashion. So how do you put pressure on the fast fashion industry to probably start changing the way they do business? I know that probably they think, well, it's less profitable for me because the more I sell, the better it is for the company. So if you were to sit down with fast fashion industries, how would you negotiate with them in order to, hey guys, let's meet in the middle. We only have one Earth. What are we going to do here?
And I think that's what we use Fashion Revolution for, to keep that pressure up. We might not be in the boardrooms, but what we can do is continue to educate so that people that are going into the boardrooms, into management committees, into directly working inside fashion industries, in the fashion industry, will be the ones that campaign for change as well. When you started the segment, I noticed that you used the word fashion activist. What can fashion activists do about this? But what we have to realize is that all of us are activists, because we are all building and campaigning for a world that is better for everyone. And we do that through the decisions that we make every day, not just as a consumer, but industry, designers, models, people in industry, people in production, people in marketing, people in there are so many opportunities every day for us to push the world to a better place. And I think we have to realize that it's the small decisions and the constant pressure that we have to put on the industry as a whole.
Well, it seems to me, Melissa, that we're at a bit of a standoff here. All those things you mentioned, all those people in production, in sales, in the corporations, and the higher-ups, all depend on this industry. And if you tell every one of them that, hey, you're all going to have to sacrifice a little bit out of your paycheck because we're all going to start selling less on purpose, that's going to be a hard sell. Meanwhile, on our end, as a consumer, sure, you just tell me to cut down on the number of shirts I buy a year, and that will help the environment. I will gladly do it. But unfortunately, I'm not sure if that's going to be enough. Can there be something done on perhaps a governmental level where lawmakers could perhaps set some standards as to how often perhaps big companies are allowed to have launches? For example, you use the seasonal scent. Like, we don't have seasons here in Indonesia or most of Southeast Asia, so we can actually just go with the shorts or the warmer shorts, and that's all we pretty much need. But over in seasonal countries, when I used to live in Canada, it's true, every season would be a different type of clothes because for the different temperatures. Plus, there would be 4 seasons a year. Then next year, well, you can't wear something from last spring. So
you kind of can, though.
No, I know, but that's what I mean. Like, people are like, oh, you can't wear that. That was from last spring. So what exactly do you think additional steps, if any, can be taken perhaps on a higher level?
When it comes to policy in the fashion industry, it is one of the least regulated and the least enforced, which is why all these things happen in the first place, which is why so many people are being harmed when they're making clothes, because even safety standards aren't taken into consideration. That's why a lot of the production has shifted to the global south, where they can get away with this, where workers' rights aren't really protected. So I think in that sense, we have a long way to go, and we just have to find the lever in which we can leverage for the other side to impact. So that's about voting people in that have a strong voice in campaigning for this, in advocating for this. Apart from that, it's environmental organizations, environmental ministries that enforce these kind of safety standards. There's a whole host of things really, and I think I want to touch on your point earlier as well about someone along, we can't stop the industry. We can't turn off the machine because there are so many people that are involved in it, that rely on it. But what we're doing is actually creating a more equitable world where everyone is treated fairly. Because right now, just because people have jobs, it doesn't mean that it's a life that is lived well, because they're stuck in poverty.
Yes.
They are being harmed. They're being exposed to all these things that cause long-term illnesses and long-term health problems. These are all things that governments care about. These are the things that they are in charge of to protect their citizens. So so we have to tackle it from a lot of different levels. That doesn't necessarily have to be specific to the fashion industry, but as a whole.
That's great points that you brought up. A lot of different angles that we never saw it from, and we hope that more people are able to open their eyes and see it from different points of views as well. Melissa, thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate what you are doing and your organization over in Malaysia and elsewhere around the world as well. And we hope you continue to stay diligent and stay healthy as well. And thank you for your efforts.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Have a lovely day and stay safe.
Take care.
Bye.